A number of years ago, our Holy Father declared the year of the priest. He wanted the world to consider, to contemplate the beauty and the dignity and the vocation of the priesthood. And so he declared that it would be the year, a jubilee year of the priest, to really focus on the beauty of the priesthood, for the lay people to consider just what a priest is and who he is to the church. Wanted young people to reconsider the possible vocation of the priesthood, and he wanted priests to be renewed in their own priesthood. We've been through so much in our world over these past few decades over a great destruction of the priesthood, and a lot of that from within. Back in 2002, news article after news article, scandal after scandal, and then we thought we were done with that. All of a sudden, we get the breaking of Bishop McCarrick and Cardinal McCarrick, former Cardinal McCarrick, and all that on that level of things. And we didn't realize how bad the devil had infiltrated the church into the very life of the priesthood and up into the episcopate. And still, house cleaning is going on. The Lord is cleaning his house. And that's always a good thing. If this stuff was inside the priesthood and inside the episcopate, it needed to be washed out, needed to be cleaned out. In one sense, we could say thank you to the Boston Globe and to others who helped the church get her act together and clean it out. However, there are a lot of good priests and a lot of good bishops who never get proper credit for the gift of themselves to Christ and his church, who sacrifice day after day to be sure that the people receive the sacraments and are fed with the truth. In the midst of all that craziness and scandal that's gone on, we forget about the multitude, the great majority of the good priests who daily lay down their lives for Christ, who offer themselves not just to be a priest, but offer themselves as a sacrifice for the gift of the church, for the sake of the church, so that all may receive the sacraments. Saint John Vianney was an incredible priest who was held up that year as the patron for diocesan priests, particularly diocesan priests, but for the priesthood in general. And it's a great story, John Vianney. He was a great, fun story of this saint who really was not a well-educated priest. He comes in France just after a lot of persecution against the church in France and kind of makes his way through seminary, gets through, and he gets assigned to this tiny little parish. And he was a devout man. He liked to pray. And he was one of those priests who understood the mission of his priesthood, that he was there to give himself for the people, to sacrifice himself for the sake of the people. But at his parish where he got there, the people were not going to church. This little church in Ars, France. The confessional was from what I remember, was just a little storage room. It wasn't taken care of. He had to clean out the confessional so he could hear confessions. The church was a mess. And so he spent some time putting it back together. And his simple program for getting people back to church is he began to fast and pray. To pray for his parishioners. To fast for them. To do penance for them. To obtain for them the grace to come back to church. Now, he had a very high, squeaky voice, which annoyed a lot of people. And he was very strong about the truths of the faith. He didn't mix words when it came to the church and the truths of the faith. He said it like it was, always with charity or with his love, but it challenged people. And his parish was a little stubborn. They didn't want to be challenged. And so they didn't like him when he got there. He was not welcomed when he got there. And they fought against him, and they wanted him out. And the parish sent a petition around to all the parishioners, and they sent it to the bishop, asking that he be removed. The bishop got a chuckle as he was going through the list of names and saw on the list Father John Vianney. He signed the petition himself. So you can tell perhaps he wasn't, too happy about being there, that he signed the petition to get rid of him. And so he joined in, and he did want a more of a contemplative life, but the Lord had other plans for him. As he gave himself to the parish, all of a sudden, people began to listen. And their hearts began to be changed, the grace he was obtaining for them through his prayer and fasting. And when I say fasting, I mean the guy ate 1 potato a week for some time. That's all he ate, praying for his parish, offering that penance of his fasting for his parish. 1 potato a week. I could barely take 1 potato a month, but 1 potato a week. And he wasn't even Irish, he was French. And he lived on that for some time. And he obtained the grace where all of a sudden the hearts were opened. And all of a sudden he was hearing maybe 1 confession a week, to the point where he was hearing 100 confessions a day. People were drawn from all over to go to Mass there, to listen to his high, squeaky voice and allow the truth of God to give them comfort and peace and penetrate their hearts. And there he sat in the confessional, hour after hour after hour, dispensing the mercy of God. All those graces he obtained for souls began to fall upon them, and they began to respond by coming to confession in droves. His poor little confessional, which had been all dusted, got cleaned out pretty good. And he was making good use of that little confessional, which became the portal of God's mercy. Now, obviously, when you have such a powerful saint as this, who's hearing so many confessions and teaching the truth and drawing so many souls back to God, you're going to make an enemy. And that enemy that he made personally was the devil himself. Satan was so angry at John Vianney for all the souls he was bringing back to God that he had it with him. And so as John would be starting to pray at night, saying his prayers, the devil would often come and beat the living daylights out of him. In the morning, sometimes he was found bruised and bleeding, because the evil one would come and beat him around the room. And John Vianney laughed it off, accepted it, and offered every bruise, every throw that he got, offered it to the Lord for his parishioners, and obtained even more graces for them. He turned the devil's attack against the devil himself by taking his attack and offering it. He even got a nickname for the devil. He called it the Grappin. One day he was staying at a friend's parish and overnight at this one rectory, and his friends all of a sudden hearing all this banging around at night and this horrible stuff, and they asked him in the morning, "What was that last night?" He goes, "Oh, that was just the Grappin." He's upset. There must be somebody coming to confession today who hasn't been to confession in a long time. Because the evil one would know that someone's making their plans and be heading towards ours, and so the evil one would beat him up so that in hopes that John would make it to the confessional to show them mercy. This happened to various saints, even just recently to Padre Pio, who died in 1968. Padre Pio used many times the devil would come and beat him, particularly if the devil knew that someone was heading to Padre Pio who hadn't been to confession in years, some hardened sinner. The devil doesn't like to lose that which he owns. And so I wonder if the devil did that to my recorder right now. Doesn't like that I'm talking about him negatively. The devil doesn't like to lose what he has. And God seeks to regain his treasure. And God will use the humble and the lowly. How better to humiliate Satan than to use a simple priest, not so well educated, with a high, squeaky voice, to win so many souls back to himself. I had to tell you this really quick, funny story. When I was in seminary and we were being trained for exorcisms, we had this priest come in to speak to us. He was a special exorcist in Rome. And I was expecting this tall, thin, deep-voiced, priest with deep-set eyes and serious face. That's what I was expecting when this exorcist came in for our course on exorcisms. And when I got to the class and the priest walked in, it was a short, fat, pudgy Italian with a lisp. And I thought to myself, at first I was shocked that he said, you know what? If God's going to humiliate Satan, that's the guy he's going to use to do it. It's not in strength, of physical strength, that evil is defeated. It's humility. It's simplicity. It's gentleness. Ultimately, it's love. And Saint John Vianney had a heart filled with love for our Lord Jesus Christ, for the Catholic faith, and a deep love for souls, that they obtain the glory of heaven. Today I ask you to please take time today, say a prayer to Saint John Vianney, to pray for our priests, that the Lord will send to the church holy vocations. We don't need great theologians or great philosophers anymore right now. What we need is holy priests. Pray to Saint John Vianney that he will obtain the grace for every priest, the grace of holiness. As John Vianney said, if the priest is a saint, the people will be holy. If the priest is holy, the people will be good. If the priest is good, the people will be lukewarm. If the priest is lukewarm, the people will go to hell. We need to pray for holy priests, saintly priests. So today, take a moment and stop and say a prayer to Saint John Vianney, that all of our priests will open their hearts to receive the grace of sanctity and respond with open hearts to love Christ, to love the church, to love souls, even the most hardened sinners. May God bless you, and Merry Keep.